Two, three, four.
Good afternoon. I'm here with the Honorable Attorney General, and we are here to address some concerns with regards to the Senior Citizens Pension Bill that was laid in the House recently. And I want to give the assurance to our senior citizens that the government has no intention to interfere with the pension of any senior citizen. In the bill, the eligibility criteria includes income, those who are ordinary resident, and there was never any requirement with regards to savings. It has always been income-based. No requirement with regards to savings. Unfortunately, it appears such a requirement was introduced into the bill, which was not highlighted in the policy or even in the cabinet note that was approved. And that note was in March 2023. What is in that note? It addressed the question of income criteria, age, and residency. No savings requirement. It so happened that we had cabinet today. We normally have cabinet on a Thursday, but we had cabinet today, and we discussed the note. And at cabinet today, in discussing the note, I wish to affirm that it is not, and it never was, cabinet's intention to affect the savings of our elderly at all. So therefore, we will not be pursuing that part of the bill. So I turn you over to the Attorney General.
Thank you, Minister Cox. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Good afternoon, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Good afternoon, pensioners. As the Minister has outlined very clearly, it is not the intention of the government to pass legislation to impact the savings of pensioners. The cabinet note which first introduced this issue came to the cabinet in March of 2023, and the policy document, because ordinarily cabinet approves the policy coming from the particular ministry which is promoting the legislation, the draft legislation. And the policy document that came on the 3rd of December 2021 from the Ministry of Social Development made it very clear at paragraph 9. The draft policy has been revised, and I'm reading from paragraph 9. The draft policy has been revised to define the term ordinary residence and include such definition in the interpretation section, page 6 of the draft policy refers. Further, guidelines have now been provided in section 4 to assist in the determination of whether a person is ordinarily resident or not. The ministry further proposes that all of the qualification requirements for the senior citizens pension should be contained in one comprehensive section of the Act. And this is the important part of paragraph 9 that I wish to read. As a consequence, the ministry proposes that section 4 should speak to the entire criteria to be satisfied. And I stress the words there, the entire criteria to be satisfied. And those criteria are laid out: 1, age; 2, income; and 3, residential qualification. There was no reference to any criteria either affecting or defining savings. That policy document came to cabinet in March of 2023, and there was nothing in the cabinet note which was addressing this draft policy which spoke to anything to do with savings at all. For a number of different reasons, that note was referred, that cabinet note was referred to the Finance and General Purposes Committee and then to the Legislative Review Committee. It was further considered on other issues. It turns out, as a result of the discussions that we had today and the background research that I did, that someone in the public service during the proceedings of the Legislative Review Committee had introduced an issue to do with savings. And it appears now, from looking at the bill, that that provision was inserted in the bill. It came back to Cabinet on the 21st of November, 2024, and the provision in the bill which deals with savings, Section 6 of the bill said the Principal Act is amended by repealing Section 4 and substituting the following section, and it began 4.1, an individual shall not be eligible to receive a pension unless he, and then the issues of age, qualifications, and residence were repeated, and then at paragraph G says, unless he has savings not exceeding $25,000. So that part of savings not exceeding $25,000 was inserted into the bill. Regrettably, it would not appear that that was addressed at the LRC stage sufficiently to put it before Cabinet, so that when it came before Cabinet on the 21st of November and Cabinet approved the policy which had come back to them with no reference to savings in that Cabinet note, the bill was approved and is now laid in Parliament. I was out of the country on the 21st of November when this bill came to the attention of Parliament. I have looked at it, and out of the discussions that have taken place today in Cabinet, and Cabinet affirming very clearly that it is not and never was the intention of addressing and impacting the savings of any pensioners, I will be withdrawing the bill that is now before Parliament and bringing back a replacement bill to exclude the reference to savings. So that's the clarification that I want to introduce and the up-to-date information for the assurance of pensioners. Thank you all very much.
Minister Cox. Yeah. Can I come to chair? Can I wear a speaker? If it was included in error, then I would have contacted you yesterday for some explanation behind the rationale why 25,000, which you defended. Why didn't you dispel it then?
Can I take that question before Minister Cox answers? The point is that this having come to my attention and having done the research that informs what I have just said to this media conference today, that informed the considerations that were discussed in Cabinet today, and I had not spoken with Minister Cox yesterday at whatever time you would have called her.
But I think you'll remember my concerns when you called me. I was not well. And I told you that what we were going through with regard to the death of our colleagues, and I would speak to you when I am able to. I think, did you remember that?
Yeah, I remember, but you gave me an answer to it, so I had to use that answer. I have to ask, it's part of the reason you're withdrawing it from the bill due to the public's reaction to it, which was not necessarily all up in arms about it. Did that factor into your decision now?
Are you asking me whether I'm withdrawing the bill because of the public reaction, or you're asserting that? Because I didn't say that.
I'm asking you the question.
No, I am withdrawing it because now that I have looked at it carefully and it was brought to my attention by the Cabinet this morning and I did the research, I have satisfied myself that there is an error in the bill and I am going to withdraw it.
Ryan Hamilton Davis, Trinidad Newsday, good afternoon. Now, I'm understanding the whole dynamic as to how these things came about and why the note was put in place and so on. But given the response from the minister yesterday in the Guardian newspaper, there seems to be an existing problem. Is that something that you are looking at, where there are people doing what was suggested? And how does that also add to policy making in the future? Where would you look for preparations for that as well?
Well, you've asked a number of questions there. If I could break it down, I would understand your concern to be, or your question to be, against the background of what Minister Cox and I have said. How does that affect the future in terms of policy and legislation?
Yes, and there's also the question that, there's also the issue that the minister raised where some people are using underhanded means to seem like they don't have the means so they will become more eligible, and this was put in the public. So is this actually still is this a
What-
problem?
All right, so can I speak to that? I mean, I haven't read today's newspapers, and I wasn't present when the minister was speaking, but what I can tell you from the point of view of Cabinet Minister and the Attorney General at the LRC stage when I had participated, certainly one of the concerns that had been very strongly brought to the attention of the Office of Attorney General and the CPC's department by Minister Cox is that there is a degree of abuse that has been taking place with respect to pensions. So a prime example, and that is one of the three things that the draft policy addressed in the document that I read from. It has to do with residential qualifications. There are persons who are otherwise entitled to pension because they have reached the age, who live outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and are having persons collect pensions on their behalf, even though they don't meet the residential qualifications that entitle them to receive pensions. So one of the things that we've done in the bill that is now before Parliament is to tighten up those qualifications, tighten up the criteria by which you are not allowed to abuse your entitlement to a pension by living abroad, and we've actually worked a formula together under the bill that will come back to Parliament in due course to ensure that we'll have a coordination of the immigration records with the applicant for the pension so that we can satisfy, the minister can satisfy herself as Minister of Social Development, that when someone applies for a pension, they have the records of immigration to satisfy them that that person is not claiming the pension whilst living abroad over an extended period of time. And that's the abuse that I certainly am conscious of, which is an abuse that we certainly intend to address, and I am certain that that's what Minister Cox would have spoken to yesterday.
I just want to add, we have to remember that our main aim is to ensure that the persons who are supposed to receive pension receive it. Because we have persons who really need to be on pension, in need of it, and our main aim is to ensure that they receive it.
Attorney General, it didn't take me long to find that $25,000 amendment. I'm not as versed as you all in probably reading bills. Did you not read the bill before it was laid in Parliament? Is that normal for something like this to happen? Would you not have seen that before it was laid?
I read the bill before it was laid in Parliament. As I said, when it was brought to Cabinet on the 21st of November in the final draft that went before Cabinet, I was not in the country. Now that it's come to my attention, I'm addressing it.
Is that normal for it to go to Parliament, for it to be laid in Parliament, and you wouldn't have seen what I guess now is the final draft that had that in it?
I did not say I did not see it. I said I read the bill, but at the date at which it went to Cabinet, I was not in the country. And it is normal that in the absence of a government minister, government continues.
But you would have had someone to fill in for your role, not so? You are appointed an acting Attorney General. Wouldn't the
That's
acting
correct.
Attorney General have to have oversight there?
That's correct. But I'm not pointing any fingers. I take responsibility.
And the public servant you mentioned, what of the public servant going forward?
I take responsibility as Attorney General. And for that reason, I am withdrawing the bill to bring it back with the part that impacts pensioners whose $25,000 savings have been affected. That has been removed.
Any discussion in the future about putting back any cap, maybe a higher cap? Because, in all fairness, when we spoke to the TTRP, they fully understood the reason for a cap. They just didn't agree that the threshold should be so low that it should be 25,000. I mean, they couldn't give an answer because they were trying to figure out how you even came up with 25,000. But they agreed with the cap. So any idea going forward into maybe reintroducing it? Because, Minister, you would have given a lot of examples yesterday, and it's in our story, so sorry I didn't read it, about the reason why you all would have introduced the cap in terms of people abusing the system. And I believe the government already spent somewhere around, 4.4 billion, 4.5 billion on the senior citizens grant. So is any consideration going forward to reintroduce a mechanism like that?
Well, I don't want to preempt the Minister of Social Development. She is, after all, the minister responsible for the policy of her government, of her ministry. But what I would say is that I don't want to preempt future discussions of Cabinet before the minister brings further proposals to us and we look at them carefully.
Any message to the country today in terms of they would have had a rough few hours trying to digest that? Anything you'd like to let them know?
Why would you say a rough few hours? I don't see it as a rough few hours. Why would you say a rough few hours?
There are a lot of public discourse about it. Just go on, you go on social media and then you one of the comments for these stories and then people go really up in arms about it. Do you feel like you owe the country an apology for that?
I take responsibility for the fact that the bill that is before Parliament has an error. I'm withdrawing the error. I'm withdrawing the bill. Thank you very much, sir.
And I would like to repeat that we have no intention of interfering with our senior citizens' pension. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Season's greetings and the very best for the Christmas and the upcoming New Year.
This is TTT. Live for local.
I know it sounds romantic to leave everything behind to